Greetings and welcome, brave citizens of our new world. I am Toronto's greatest supervillain and evil genius, Dr. Terawatt. This is our Lair 3.0, and today is day 5 of our VEDA challenge. VEDA, vlogging every day in April. Got my PlayStation shirt on. I used to be one of those, like, Nintendo-only kids. Like, I only had the Nintendo consoles. I only played those games. I was very adamant that they were the best games. And then I got a place on my own when I turned 18, and I realized that almost all the Nintendo games that I had, or a lot of them, were like co-op only or very multiplayer-centric. So I got a system that was based around local single-player and online multiplayer. PS3. Anyway. Hey Doc, I understand that when you take over the world there will be no more divided territories/nations. Probably remembering that wrong though. No, you're right. But people tend to make their own anyway, even if unofficially. That's kind of how it started in the first place. How are you going to deal with that? Well, I mean, you need to remember that after a lot of the rest of the world was colonized, established like 150-esque years ago, at least in Canada's sake, celebrating their 150th birthday, not a lot of the national or provincial borders have changed within Canada in the last 150-ish years without the PMs, the Prime Ministers, say so. Like, people can make up names locally for certain neighborhoods, and that's fine. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. But, like, if I'm concerned that, you know, everybody who lives in X area, like, is gonna be like, no, this is what this place was called before, and it's what we will call it forever. Like, well, no. You know how many times that's ever worked? Almost never. Like, if a governing body says, this town is called Appletown now, and the people there go, well, it used to be called Pear Town, then everything just says Appletown, and eventually, it takes literally one generation flop. Like, one generation turnover, the next generation of people just call it Appletown. Like, no one cares. And their forefathers will go, oh, but this is Pear Town, and we should always remember that. And the new generation will go, why? Why does that matter? It doesn't, it turns out. It's like how I'm really adamant about still calling it the Sky Dome, but everybody in the newer generations calls it the Rogers Center. That just burns my ass. But I'm part of the previous generation, see? And the newer generation of people don't care. Case in point. Doc, we are kindred tomato allergy bros. Why, were you always allergic? If not, do you miss anything tomato-based? I missed spaghetti with tomato sauce. Fond memories of early childhood. Sort of. I mean, I might have been allergic to that stuff since I was a kid. I'm not necessarily sure. I just recently, within the last, I'm going to say the last 4 to 5 years, kind of figured out that, you know, when I was eating things with raw tomatoes or raw nightshade plants like bell peppers in some cases, that it would cause like the inside of my mouth to start to dissolve, and it was really gruesome, and would then equally cause trouble with my digestive system. I find though that a lot of, or some spaghetti sauces and sauces on pizzas and things like that have been processed enough that those enzymes are no longer prevalent and don't cause any problems with me. But things like fresh raw tomatoes, tomatoes on hamburgers and things like that I can't have, and yeah, I kind of miss that. Doc, where did you get that fantastic portrait of yourself? The one behind the fire extinguisher. What? Oh, right, yeah. This was drawn by Angelique. She was also in one of, actually, The Rise of Dr. Terawatt. She was one of the citizens that was talking. She did this up for me a little while ago, and it's based on a photo that was done, like, years and years ago. Somebody took a photo, and they just, like, blam, threw that up. So, and she just randomly drew that up for me as just practicing drawing and was like, here, I randomly did this, you can have it. And I was like, cool. I think it's great. You get $1 million, but there's a 1% chance at the moment of accepting that a zombie outbreak will occur. Yes or no? Nope. Okay, here's the thing. One, in our economy today, $1 million, not a huge amount of money. Like, it's a huge amount of money to, like, the middle or lower class of our society, but not the upper middle class or higher. $1 million is not a big deal. And two, I do not want to put people in danger. 1% chance of there being a zombie outbreak. A zombie outbreak, at least the ones that I imagine, absolutely decimate our population. Just crush society. And I don't want that to be the case. Even a 1% chance, I wouldn't gamble with the lives of millions of people. Plus, I can always get more money just by, like, robbing a bank or something, and that puts a significantly smaller amount of people at risk. Dr. Terawatt, if people bring up Dr. Steele, who is now retired, please direct them over to here, toysoldiersunite.com. We, the Toy Soldiers, have continued on our own, trying to change the world. The TSU is a good place to meet others with similar ideas and make new miniature friends. You know, okay, one that absolutely warms my heart that Dr. Steele created a community of people that were determined to positively change the world for the better. And people keep pouring into the toy soldier army to just to give everything that they've got, anything that they've got to make the world a better place. And to think that one supervillain managed to do that is just the coolest thing. And it's kind of a personal dream of mine to have that kind of effect, like world domination, right up there to make the world a better place. But it's like if I can have this kind of impact on people, that's phenomenal. And I will have to check out that website, because if there is an entire community of people that are like, we want to follow a supervillain to make the world a better place, and they are without a supervillain, well, I might be able to, you know, give some folks some direction. Dr. Terrawat, in your bold new world, what do you intend to do with the thousands of innocent people that were incarcerated? Some of those people have been in prison for as long as 30 years before they're exonerated. Time can never be replaced. You're absolutely correct. I cannot turn back time. I can turn forward time. That is something I figured out that I can do. But turning back time is, like, impossible. Yes, those people were incarcerated wrongly. Like, those people were imprisoned incorrectly. But there's no such thing as a perfect system. Like, the systems that we create, we try to do the best that we can with, because ultimately those systems are created and governed by human beings, which are imperfect in their nature. That being said, in the world that I want to create, aging will not be a problem. The Phoenix virus will allow people to basically live indefinitely. They will never age. You can still die from literally anything else, but you'll never die of old age. So these people that have been incarcerated for 30 years or something like that, what I could give them is not only their freedom, but also an unlimited amount of time to live their lives and do better. I'm trying to think of flying castle names, but I can't seem to get beyond Thunderdome. Oh, I am on fire! Are you flying dirigibles again while you're typing? What did I tell you about that? Anyway, another question. City of Titans is on the horizon, well, 2018-19-ish, so any thoughts of finding a game to settle on for the community to share in? Any particular themes of game that appeal to you? That was the thing. Our Twitch community that we have, where I'm streaming games, and our Patreon donators that are a part of our games and stuff like that that we do, which is just absolute crazy fun. We've been looking for a game that we can play as like a community, like an MMO or something like that we can all get together on and build worlds and do stuff together, like and just as a team, co-op and do some big crazy stuff. I really like the open world sandbox survival games like Rust or DayZ, not really DayZ as much. Reign of Kings, definitely, where it rewards people for working in teams and working hard and working together to achieve something really big and amazing together. And that's definitely something that I wanted to do. Reign of Kings, though, unfortunately was just dropped nearing the end of its finished development. Like, they basically sort of half-finished the game and then ditched it. Rust is still in its beta, which it's been in for years, and they're looking to wrap up the game and just say it's finished and drop it and walk away pretty soon. It has some really cool mechanics to it, but nothing entirely perfect. The one major drawback with games like that is that your main purpose for existing in that universe is not just to build a big fortress with your friends, but also to destroy the fortresses of your enemies. So likely if we got a game like that, we would be renting a server so that we could play on it with just us and not have to deal with a bunch of randos wandering in, or hackers and cheaters, etc., which is really bad for games like that. Other games we were looking into were MMOs like World of Warcraft, Terra, Final Fantasy. Those less as much as Star Citizen was definitely one that we were looking at, because we could start a corporation, Evil Incorporated, and have a capital class ship. Noir was actually one of the guys in our gaming community had picked up one, and we're like, oh man, this ship can hold like 20-something people, with like people on turrets and people doing navigation and different jobs. It has like a bridge. I could sit in like a captain's chair and dole out orders and stuff. Like, it would be so cool to play a game like that. But again, it like Star Citizen's been in development for a very long amount of time, and we're not sure when it's going to be done yet. So we're kind of looking for a game that we can get together and play online together in. So if you get a chance, leave me in the comment section down below. Like, I have not heard of City of Titans, but I'd love to look into that, love to check that out. What games do you think would be good for a community like this to get together and play? City of Heroes and Villains Champions Online, I'm told, folded, and those were like really big things that I wanted to try. But yeah, let me know. Question based on current political issues. If you were the supreme ruler of Canada and had immigrants trying to enter your country, but there was a chance that some of your immigrants might try to harm your good citizens after entering your country, what would you do? That's always the thing, isn't it? There's always those bad apples that ruin the batch, so to speak. And that's the kicker. Do you know what terrorists or cheaters or other bad people look like? They look like everyone else. They look like you, they look like me, they look like everyone. There's no color or race or gender or religion or anything that, you know, is specifically indicative to people that are trying to tear down society in general, let alone Canadian society. And that's the thing, is it's like, would you accept 10 people into your country if one of them could be a terrorist? Would you accept 2 people in your country if one of them was a terrorist? 100 if one of them was a terrorist? Where do you draw the line? What do you do? I mean, I would do what I think Canada's doing right now, because, I mean, JT, not everybody's a huge fan of JT. I'm a huge fan of JT, though. I would do what I think the Canadian government is doing right now, and that is screen people on their way in. Just screen them as best as you can. Because that, well, one, if you have a really good screening system, it's deterrent for people that are going to try to just randomly wander in, and 2, sometimes, rarely, you catch the people that are gonna try to show up and cause trouble. I mean, if it was a 10-to-1 thing, that's 10 lives you're turning away from a better life and a better future just because one of them might try to cause some trouble. Even one of them is gonna try to cause some trouble. Like, how many people is that one person gonna kill if they get in, right? Like, you gotta balance those numbers because you want to save lives, but you also want to protect the lives that you have, that you're responsible for now. The people that are already in Canada, you want to be like, all right, well, I want to protect these people because these are my people, these are my Canadians. I want to protect them, I want to keep them safe. But then there's these other people that are trying to get in here because they're trying to find a better life in your country. And you're like, yeah, I want to do that, but you know, there might be some people from that area that are going to try to come in here and kill all my Canadians. So, like, you want to help them, but keep your folks safe at the same time. It's a hard balance. I mean, the automated enforcement system that I'm planning on implementing would solve, like, almost all of this, so it's practically a moot point. Henchman program, oh snap! Quick to the fingerless gloves / patched vests shop. So, what does an evil doctor generally look for in their hired muscle / workforce? Gumption, obedience, sufficiently Neanderthal-like brow? Well, I mean, funny thing, the minions get matching uniforms. Henchmen can look, or henchpersons, can look like basically anybody. As long as you have exceptional skills or abilities that make you useful to an evil organization one way or another, is pretty much like that's the bar. Hey Doc, what are your opinions on superheroes in Toronto? P.S. That Mike guy seems really cool, you should totally let him cut your hair.
How about no?
It's not happening. My hair's already been cut. What's the matter with you? Superheroes in Toronto. You know what? If there's people that want to put on masks and outfits and try to combat street-level crime, all the power to them. I mean, I know for a fact that the enforcement system that we currently have in place is tainted by organized crime, and there's nothing really that we can do for that, because the alternative is throw all these people in jail and turn Toronto into open game for more organized crime from God knows who. If people want to put on costumes and muck up their schemes and plans and stuff like that, by all means. If they want to put on costumes and bother me and get in my way as I'm doing stuff, then I don't like that. Which is a typical opinion. I like stuff that doesn't bother me. I have a weird question. Did you see any light? I assume you mean after I was shot. Allison, I did experience, I did have a religious experience in that moment in my life, but I feel like that religious experience was for me. And it's not something that I'm supposed to share. Thank you, Dr. Terawat. That was very informative. Anytime. No, Google's great. Would you not prefer a live performance by a bardic troupe? Concerts and stuff like that, I have been to, and I don't dislike them, depending on who the bard is. I saw AC/DC live. It's an amazing show. I've also seen a couple of things at the Four Seasons Symphony Orchestra. It was just, amazing. But really, I like cheap theater food. Sitting down with popcorn or nachos and that nuclear molten cheese and watching a movie. And I happen to have a penchant for superhero films. I can't imagine why. Well, that didn't work as planned. I guess my disguise skills need work. I wonder if you have a means to detect magic. Not myself personally, but Professor Hades deals with magic mostly and has given me some equipment to handle that, mostly crystals, and I'm not... They glow and make noises when things start to happen, so that's basically how that's supposed to work. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with, if you have a gap in your personal expertise, just finding somebody who fills that gap perfectly and, you know, hanging out with them, spending time, making friends. I have a question about Astra's costume. She says it's made of psionic responsive nanites. How does that work? Full disclosure, I have no idea, but if I was doing a suit that was made of psionic responsive nanites, it would probably involve some manner of EEG responsive gear. Basically something that maps and reads your brain functions and then responds to those things. Fun fact, the brain waves that you give off are like a fingerprint. The frequency is specific to you. Mostly. Like real fingerprints. Right, so I got 2 questions asking basically when the next blast processing episode is and what's going on with that. Because I've been doing the rebranding and all of our old blast processing episodes includes the old name, what we're going to be doing is just putting up a new channel and we're going to start releasing content, just releasing new gaming content under the new name, and we're going to either restart the games that we were playing or we're just going to start new games. Outlast was cool, so I want to get back to that. I'm probably going to do another playthrough of Fallout 4, but I'm either going to do it on like survival mode or do something else to make it like more interesting and cool, add a bunch of mods in just for like, you know, for fun. There's a lot of games that I wanted to play as like a stream, not streaming, but like I wanted to play as like a Let's Play series. So hopefully we'll get into that. Doc, important question. Zeppelins, yay or nay? Yay on the look and the feel, nay on the actual application. They're like 90% balloon, dude. Can you do a dab? If you lost an arm in battle and had to get a prosthetic one, would you get one that looks like a real arm or a mechanical looking one like Full Metal Alchemist? Would you add any features to it like a cannon or perhaps a hidden compartment for snacks? Quad, yes to basically all of that. I would have a huge mechanical arm. Like if I had to get an arm replaced or a leg replaced or something like that, I would absolutely have hidden cannons, snack compartments, like a phone, all manner of junk like built into it, Inspector Gadget style, and it would absolutely look like a big mechanical thing. Like, it would not look like a regular arm. What is the point of having a prosthetic arm if it doesn't look cool? If you were to accidentally drink one of my puppet potions, what would be your first reaction to the realization that you've become a fabricated Canadian? Mulvrace, you've resorted to using mind control serums. You're better than that. We're better than that. Come on. I'm not sure what my reaction would be, but to be completely frank, I'm not even sure if those things would work on me. My physiology is bananas right now. Physiology has been bananas for a long time, actually. Greetings and salutations, Doc. I was just wondering if there are any bloopers for the death of Dr. Holocaust and the rise of Dr. Terawatt, and will we ever see them? There is, my god, is there ever. And we are planning on releasing those in the end of April, after VEDA. I'm going to be editing those throughout the month. That's one of the things that I'm working on, is the blooper reels from both films, which is super fun. You like wrestling? Pro wrestling on television I never got into as a kid, and I couldn't get into during other facets of my life either. I mean, it's like a big physical gladiator arena / soap opera, which I thought was like a really cool concept, and I could have easily gotten into it, but I never really could, I guess. I don't know if I just never had the time. I love a lot of the memes and stuff that surround John Cena, though. I think that's funny.
Are you sure about that?
Can you look back on a period in history where you thought, if humanity had stayed on this path, my actions would not be needed to save it? I have no idea. I believe that human beings are pretty inherently garbage and would have found their way to the greedy democratic mess that we are in right now, sort of one way or another. I think a lot of the library burning that has happened across history, the Dark Ages specifically, there was a huge amount of knowledge, a huge amount of medical learning, scientific learning that was just thrown out because it was considered against God, and I think that that's just a travesty. I think that that set us back centuries of scientific learning, that if we had not done that, that we would be in a completely different place now, like culturally and technologically. We would just be somewhere altogether different. As atrocious as the First and Second World Wars were, I don't know, I feel like maybe the world needed it one way or another. No, I don't buy that. don't actually buy that. I used to believe that, but I don't believe that anymore. Hi Doc, it's still taking time for me to get used to the new name. No, me too. Speaking of, how did you land on terawatt as your new identity? Well, I was going over a lot of different things, and I thought I could either use a real word that already exists, like kilowatt, which was like the runner-up, but is being used by so many people already. Or I could make up some other name that's on a word that, you know, I've invented, like fluorogen or nitrosite or something like that. Like, I could have been Dr. Nitrosite. That would have been fun, but it would have been really difficult for people to look it up because it's a made-up word. So the trick was just finding, at least in my opinion, settling on something that is a real word, sounds cool, and isn't being used by a lot of people. Terawatt is 1,000 gigawatts. For those of you who watch Back to the Future, 1.21 gigawatts is a bolt of lightning, roughly. So a terawatt is an absolutely just insane amount of electricity, but absolutely vaporize most metals. Like, it's crazy. So I thought, you know, something that tremendous would be really cool, and it was being used by almost nobody, so bam, here we are. Hey Doc, welcome back and glad to see you. Thank you, it is glad to be seen. My question is, do you like roller coasters, ground rides, or just amusement parks in general? Places like Canada's Wonderland? No. I like places like Canada's Wonderland. I do. The big water park is a lot of fun despite the fact that I sink in water. I can sort of swim, but not really. And I like the big rides and the big colorful stuff and people running around being happy. It's basically just a giant playground for people of all ages to run in and goof off, and it's super cool. But I do not like roller coasters. Hey Doc, with the legislation of marijuana being a huge talking point both in Canada with the recent raids and in the US with 9 states legislating in their last elections, I was wondering, where do you stand on the subject and why? Marijuana, to me, is such a non-issue. The war on drugs was started by Richard Nixon once upon a time to basically attack hippies and naysayers of the war. So people that were against the Vietnam War, they couldn't necessarily incarcerate those people, but a lot of those people that were against the war were also people that smoked weed. So if they criminalized weed, then they could break up those groups of people, you know, break up their parties and arrest their leaders. Something that a cabinet member of Nixon's office openly said, a real quote. Look up Adam Ruin's Everything Marijuana, and there's like an entire video fully explaining that. Very much like alcohol, though I think it should be restricted to people under a certain age, that you need to be over a certain age when your brain is done developing before you start smoking. And just like alcohol, overconsumption can cause lasting effects, but not really anything that if you just stop using it, you can't slowly get back over time. The kicker is that THC is non-physically addictive. It doesn't replace any chemicals in your brain, so no matter how much of it you take, you cannot gain a physical dependence on it, only a psychological dependence. Which is why I would say it's even possibly safer than alcohol. But oh, what if you're smoking it and there's kids and they breathe in the smoke and couldn't it affect them? Absolutely. Same as if you leave your booze lying around and your kid decides to like grab your Jack Daniels and take a chug, he could seriously hurt himself. Responsible consumption is always a thing. Wharton has actually been assisting me in testing out the use of some indica because I suffer from really extreme anxiety and have problems eating and sleeping properly because of that. And instead of taking really severe medications, it's like if you take this once in a while, like once a week even, just like have a bit to calm down so that you can have a good night's sleep and eat really well the next day. They just didn't have big multi-billion-dollar companies behind them like alcohol and tobacco did, so they never got popularized once upon a time. Blame Nixon, really. Anyway, and that's all the time that I've got for today before I get off on another rant and just get really frustrated about everything all the time. There's a phone ringing, so until next time, my brave citizens, I am Toronto's greatest supervillain and evil genius, Dr. Terawatt. This is our Lair 3.0, and I will see you tomorrow on our next episode of VEDA, End of Line!